Hello, I'm Phil the photographer. I moved to Bath during lockdown. I didn't know anyone in Bath, so when things got going again, I joined lots of different groups, and one of them was Petanque. That's where I met John. We became friends, and I was invited to join John and Mark for their regular Saturday morning coffee and chat. I thought it would be nice to film us having a chat just like we do down the pub, so I invited them around to me, and this is the result. So we're going to talk about some of the bands we've seen play live, and I'm going to start off because I've seen Blondie at the Roundhouse, I've seen Elton John at the Hammersmith Odeon, Kate Bush in Hammersmith, I saw Phil Collins playing at the Royal Albert Hall, and I saw the Eagles in Wembley Stadium. And of course, in a stadium, they're just so far away, you can't really see. It could have been anyone on stage. So, Mark, who have you seen play live over the years?
I've seen the Rolling Stones play live. And the Beatles.
The Beatles?
The Beatles.
Yeah?
At the Hippodrome in Bath, in Bristol. Yeah, and I've seen, who else have I seen? Chuck Berry with the piano in the Hippodrome in Bristol.
So he came to Bristol as well.
Yeah.
Good.
I've seen Engelbert Humperdinck.
Yeah?
In Belgium, in Ostend.
Wow.
In the theatre there. And I've seen David Bowie in the Stadium of Light in Lisbon.
In Lisbon. Wow.
And every time he finished a song, whilst they're changing over for another song, he would go to the curtain and hide behind that and light a cigarette.
Is that right? You could see what he was doing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
so it's quite interesting. It's one thing I always find with when you're watching live performances, is you get I think you've got two types of people. Those people that once the music starts, they start to go like this and move, and there's other ones who don't. And I often wondered why.
Because nowadays they've all got phones and they hold their phones up, which drives me crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Who have you seen then, John?
A lot. I mean, the first time when I came to Bristol when I was 16, the only people I'd seen was actually in Bristol, was Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent. And then when I got to Bristol, they used to do like 6 or 7, Bobby Vee and John Layton, Eden Kane, people like that on the same bill, who nobody's ever heard of. I also saw the Beatles at the Colston Hall, and they were supporting Frank Ifield.
Wow.
And I saw the Stones, I think I saw Stones in Cardiff, saw Bowie in Cardiff, Elton John in someplace in Euston. And I saw the Bangladesh concert, George Harrison, and I went to the Isle of Wight years ago, Jimi Hendrix and people like that. But I was in that sort of crowd. And then I got into sort of African music, and I would go and see a lot of African acts. But I think the last person I saw was my favourite singer, Angelique Kidjo, who's from Benin. And that was at London Jazz thing about 2 years ago.
Does she have a bone in her nose?
No, she didn't actually, Mark.
You didn't recognise her from anywhere else?
No, I didn't, Mark. I did recognise her from having seen her several times before.
Oh, right.
And in fact, I saw her with Sylvie, my ex, at I think it was the Embankment, somewhere in the Barbican. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with her. As well as I liked her music, I actually fell in love with her. Can I tell a story? Am I allowed to?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. We'd seen this lady perform before outdoors, and part of her act was walking through the audience. And this particular time, she came through and tripped over my then girlfriend's backpack. And then later on, she invites people on the stage. So we were then about 2 years later, we were at the Barbican watching her, and my other half said, let's get on the stage. So we went on the stage, and there was about 12 or 14 of us. And what we didn't realise was that she was doing this, like, what do you call it when you go down under a pole?
Limbo dancing.
She was doing like, there was no pole, but she was doing like this limbo dancing. And then she got everybody on the stage, you next, to do this limbo dancing. I had no chance of doing a limbo dance. I can't even lean backwards and stand on my feet. And she was gradually getting through them. And I thought, shall I run? And I thought, oh no, I'll hide. And there was these two huge speakers. And the one on my side, I get behind that speaker. And as I moved towards it, this face came from behind it. And it was Sylvie, my girlfriend, smirking it because she was there and I couldn't get there. And so I'm not getting off the stage. I'm going to stay on I'll make an idiot of myself. I'm staying. But I was so scared because I know I couldn't do it. Anyway, she came up to me doing this backwards and forwards bit. And she got to me and she caught hold of my arms and looked at me, and she could see that I was scared, and she just smiled and then went back. And I thought, not only do I love your music, I love you forever.
Oh, that's nice.
There is another bit to that, about 3 years later, but I won't do that
Okay.
at this time.
No, it's interesting because of other shows. You mentioned limbo dancing. It reminded me that I've seen the Paul McKenna, who did hypnotism.
Oh, yeah.
And he tried to hypnotise pretty much everyone in the audience, and he managed to get the most susceptible ones up onto the stage to hypnotise them. And I was just fascinated by how anyone could, hypnotise people. I still don't know how he does it, but he would make them do funny things like limbo dancing and things like that. Have you been to any of those sort of shows, Mark, that have not necessarily music, it could be music, but different sorts of things,
No, I haven't actually. I've not. I've been to the ones with the Master of Ceremonies, Parkinson.
Oh, yeah.
And he was probably about 87 there, didn't look that well, but he's got wonderful memories and was explaining all about the different characters that he'd met, and we're going off, it's not a band really, is it? But
No. Well, I mean, I know you did lots of tour guiding in Paris, and that would include taking a coachload of people to see the shows in Paris. So you've indirectly probably seen quite a lot of shows that most people might only see once in a lifetime.
I've been to the Moulin Rouge a number of times, and that's quite a polished performance. Most of the girls there are of English or Commonwealth nationalities, because the French don't tend to have tall ladies.
Oh.
So it's mostly English dancers, and the sort of people in charge over there are English as well. Mm-hmm. So it's quite. I've been to the Folies Bergère, which is another cabaret show, and another one which is called Crazy Horse, and that's the one which apparently have the best looking ladies.
Because by going many times, you often see behind the scenes sometimes the things that the normal audience don't get to see, because you might have to go in at different times of the day to see if they're ready for you and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a different atmosphere at night time, because all the tables are laid and all the catering's being done, and you get nice glasses of champagne and this sort of thing, whereas in the daytime it's a bit like going into a cinema with all the lights on.
Yeah.
My rock and roll highlight was I was a roadie for a few days for a group that were number one in the hit parade.
And who were they?
Thunderclap Newman.
Thunderclap Newman.
Thunderclap Newman. only because when I lived in the countryside in West Tivoli, in farmhouse, one of my flatmates there, or housemates, his girlfriend was the sister of Steve Ellis, who was the lead singer of Love Affair, Everlasting Love.
Uh-huh.
And he used to come and stay, and he's down with a couple of his friends, and they put together this song and got some session musicians to record it, and it went to number one.
Wow.
And the only one in the group who sang was the singer. He sang on it, and Steve Ellis sang on it as well. And then it went to number one, and they wanted some people at nobody to go around with a group, because in those days it was like 5 groups. Yeah, I think the Applejacks were top of the bill, and all I did was carry stuff in and carry stuff out.
Uh-huh.
But it was about 3 days, end of pier stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so
God,
I was a roadie for 3 days.
God, the show's at the end of the pier.
I met Honor Blackman, who used to be in the Bond films, didn't she, in the Avengers.
Yeah.
I was in a flat which was, they had an au pair, and I knew the au pair, and I wanted to use the phone, so she said, use the one in Honor Blackman's bedroom. So I went into the bedroom, was using the phone, and who should come in but Honor Blackman.
Wow.
It's quite a sort of intrusion, really, I should suppose. Shock for her, but I said to her, I'm really sorry, but I had to make a phone call. She said, oh, that's okay. She was a very nice lady.
Very good.
Yes. And then things went from, sort of chatty and that sort of thing. And in the end, I waved bye-bye. But it's quite unusual when you come across people you're not expecting to see.
Yeah.
But there used to be, the Garrick. The Garrick's now a restaurant, but it used to be split. One half was a gay bar, which we used to go in quite a lot because a lot of people who worked for us were gay. When we had a telesales department. But the other half was a pub. And of course, after the show, a lot of the performers would come in there. And you could be sat there having a drink, and I've seen people like Raquel Welch, Charlton Heston, Lauren Bacall, all come, and sometimes you're sat there and they sit next to you, and you think, I know that, and you've just watched them on the stage and things. And most of the time they're very, very nice, very, very straightforward, and they've probably been asked the same question, I saw you in the whatever.
Yeah.
Most times I just sat there, starstruck.
I think the thing is, when you're young, you go across these certain things and you think, this is a bit dodgy and that sort of thing. So but it does make you, especially if you sort of then get married and then you've had children or you get divorced. So you get to an age in life when you think, say about 65 to 70, and you think, I wonder if I'd taken that road when I was 28, when you offered something and you think, shall I do it or not? And it would be quite interesting to reverse and go up that road of life.
And see what it was like.
And see what it was like. But there again, you never know where you might have got knocked down by a bus the next day. Because you've taken that road.
So does this mean you've had a few missed opportunities maybe in your past?
No, I don't think it's a missed opportunity. I think it's all laid out for you, really. And I think you've got, I think one could say that, but I just think it's, I remember selling my restaurant and then going down to Portugal because I'd sold my restaurant, I had money in the bank, and somebody offered me a job selling timeshare. And I thought, well, I don't mind if I don't sell anything, really.
Yeah.
So you go down there and you work, and I had a fabulous time. But a sensible person might not have ever done that.
Yeah.
They would stay on the straight and narrow. So
yeah.
I've done some different things like that in my life, and especially with doing tour managing and going out to all parts of Europe with groups. When you don't even know where you're going yourself sometimes because it's so new. But when you come to death, I think sometimes is there any afterlife or not? You know, well, of course you're hoping there will be, but you're also hoping that it's going to be reasonably pleasant. But it seems such a shame when you get people who have been through a long life, and they might be doctors or scientists or people who've got general good common sense, and you've lost all that experience. And I think it's such a shame. It'd be good to connect to a computer so they could take out all those experiences and pass them on to people.
Yeah.
I think that's quite a good thing to do.
John, have you had any...
You'd have to edit it a bit.
Eh?
You'd have to edit it a bit.
You would have to edit it, yeah, but it's all part of thing. I think another situation is if you've actually met somebody on a night time and you go back to your flat or something, and then all of a sudden there's a switch goes and you think, no, this isn't going to go anywhere, and you pull yourself together and you've got to go in to see the lady and say, well, I think this isn't going to work, which is quite a tough thing to get over.
John, have you had any missed opportunities that passed you by? Do you think that you, having your time again, you think, oh, I should have taken that offer?
I know that there's companies I work for that I left, I should have stayed at I left for reasons that I could leave, and I left. I've had a breakup with relationships, and I'd say, as we had this discussion before, that I've been dumped a lot. But I think sometimes I encouraged the dumping and was a willing participant, if you like, and I shouldn't have done, because you look back and like when I was in London, I was in a relationship with a lady who was one of the most lovely people I'd ever met in my life, but I left her to come back to Bath, and I sort of, I don't know about regret it, but I sort of wonder about it, because what would have happened?
I thought we'd talk about some near-death experiences, and I'll start off with one of mine. A guy I knew had been staying with me, bought a new sports car and said, come on Phil, I'll take you for a spin. And he whizzed me around the street showing off in his fancy sports car. And we went round Chiswick roundabout, and where it peels off to go along to the M4 flyover, he was straightening up and lost control, and the new sports car started spinning, and it spun around a whole 360 degrees, and it bounced off the wall, brick wall that's holding up the M4 flyover, and it pushed us back into the road in the direction we were travelling in. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm still alive. And he didn't even stop to inspect the damage or anything, and I thought, never again, never again. So that was my near-death experience. And I had another one when I was driving a motorbike down to the BBC, and put the brakes on in the wet, and the motorbike didn't slow down, and there's a crossroads ahead of me, and I couldn't stop, and I went straight across the crossroads. Fortunately, there was nothing coming, or I would have perhaps not been here to this day. So that was another near-death experience. So next day I made sure I got some proper British tyres on my Japanese motorbike, so I wouldn't skid in future.
Well, it's altogether, you've got another situation where people are smoking still. And if you suffer from respiratory diseases in later life, then it would be nice to actually, I sometimes feel like going up to people and saying, why are you telling them my story and saying, you ought to quit because this is what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And I think that would be quite good to do. But there's various times that sort of you've been out to the pub and had about 5 pints, and all of a sudden you walk off a curbstone and you haven't looked the right way and the car nearly hits you.
Yeah.
Which is really that split second, isn't it?
That's right. A split second later, it could be curtains.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. John, any near misses?
I was shot at in Rhodesia, but they didn't get very close to me.
Blimey.
It wasn't me personally. It was just they shot at the car that we were in. We used to, when I was in South Africa, I used to have to go up to the Rhodesian office, which was in Bulawayo and Salisbury, now Harare. Usually we'd get to the border, and then the Rhodesian army would take us by convoy. Scout. I forget what they called them now.
Scout troops?
Scout troops, yeah. No, scout car. And a little thing with a machine gun on it at the back, and one in the front and one in the middle. And myself and the South African guy couldn't be bothered to wait for them because we'd never seen a bit of trouble because they were fighting these guys, the rebels. And we were driving along. The South African guy was driving, and all of a sudden there's boom, 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 and he looked in the hood of the car. It looked like it was springing out, and this guy had shot the engine. So of course we went to a halt, and we were right by this big ditch. So we got out of the car and rolled in this ditch, and this guy had a gun. I didn't have a gun, and like I looked over and I could see this kid. He wasn't more than 14, 15, and he was in a tree. And he shot the car about 17 times, but he didn't get anywhere near us.
Wow.
And then the convoy came round and got us out. And I was never scared. I thought this guy is never going to hit us. And he didn't make any attempt. And as we heard the convoy coming and looked, and this kid had just gone. And there was only one bloody tree in the middle of nowhere. God knows where he went. I don't know. And I didn't want anything to happen to him. I didn't take it personally. I would have anywhere else I was supported the rebels.
Wow.
But
that is a good story.
I wasn't. There was no near misses, and I didn't do anything. In fact, I spent a lot of the time laughing. I was dead down this, and I just I had hysterics, I guess. I was just laughing. And this South African guy, he was very unimpressed with me. He said later, he did everything but wet himself. I was useless.
Early memories of TV, because of course they used to have cowboys and Indians on a lot, which we've talked about in the pub.
Yeah, you used to have the Lone Ranger. It used to be on about 5:25 at night. So with his partner was called Kemo Sabia, Indian.
No, he's called Tonto.
Oh yeah, Tonto,
Kemo
yeah.
What he called the guy.
Tonto, yeah. So then we had other things which are like the early Blue Peter, and then the chappie who was worked at the zoo in Bristol Zoo.
Animal Magic.
Animal Magic with Morris, Desmond Morris, wasn't it? And
No.
Johnny Morris.
Johnny Morris, yeah,
He used
that's
to do
right.
animal impressions.
Yeah.
Yeah, make them talk, didn't they?
Yeah, then we had Take Your Pick, Double Your Money, all these sort of programs which are lovely and very excitable, you know.
Michael Miles.
Is that Huey Green and people?
Huey Green, yeah. That sort of thing. They're all dead now, you see, aren't they?
There'd be 110 if they weren't.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, that's led to game shows, and the TV is a wash of game shows nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
It's very cheap television, isn't it?
game shows are cheap, for sure.
Yeah.
I used to make a lot of the sitcoms that were popular in those days, and so I did things like 3 Up, 2 Down, Brushstrokes,
Hancock's Half Hour.
Bread. No, that was a bit before my time,
Yeah.
actually. But, that was on the radio initially, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And they did some TV ones, I think.
And Steptoe and Son, that was another one.
Oh yeah.
That was TV, yeah.
Yeah. And it was all these... it was pretty limited because you only had sort of one channel, then you had 2 and then 3. So it was all pretty... BBC Two was quite interesting because they had programmes like The High Chaparral,
Oh yes.
which is quite a good western.
Bonanza. There were a lot, weren't they? The
Yeah.
Cowboys and Indian stuff.
Yes.
And it was in black and white. We never had a TV until I was 14, what we had was Saturday morning pictures, which
yeah.
my mother used to send us to get rid of us, I think. And that was quite good, because that was when you saw Hopalong Cassidy, Roy Rogers and Lone Ranger and people like that. I think we got a TV about when I was 14. But prior to that, highlights, there was the radio. I used to like the Red Planet or something it was called, Space One. And my mother was always sewing, so the radio was by her, and so she would only let me listen to this Space Odyssey thing, whatever it was called, if I would push the pedal. So I was sat on the floor pushing that pedal to listen to the radio. I remember that. Yeah.
Well, Quatermass was one.
That was on TV. Yeah, I remember. I did see that.
That was very scary.
Yeah. Because my friends had TV.
Yeah.
I can remember going around to see the coronation. That must have been, what, 53?
Yeah.
You weren't born then?
1953, yeah.
You weren't born then? 53?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Saturday morning pictures, it was the coronation and climbing Everest, because they happened in the same
Yeah,
couple of
that's
weeks
right.
and things. Hillary and Tenzin.
Yeah.
Up in,
Mark, do you remember radio programmes that you used to listen to maybe every week when they were on?
Yeah, I used to have things like watch my line, is it?
yeah.
That sort of thing, and then they just a minute. And Gilbert Harding, he was on one of those programmes, sort of Top of the Pops and that sort of thing. It wasn't Top of the Pops, Disc
Jukebox Jury?
Jukebox Jury.
That was
Yeah.
David Jacobs.
No, there's David Jacobs
Yeah, he
and
was
also Gilbert Harding.
He was on
Yeah,
the posh programs.
it was posh programmes, yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But we used to always watch the programme that comes from the big concert hall in London.
Palladium?
No, well, you had Sunday night at the London Palladium. Yeah, and it's what's it called? I've forgotten that. What's the army manoeuvres when they used to come on with the guns and
Royal
then take
Albert
them all.
Hall?
Yeah, Royal Albert Hall. Yeah, and take all the guns apart and then they had to put them back again.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good programme. So it's.
Yeah, my stepfather liked all that sort of stuff. But it's like Around the Horn and Life of the Lions. That's really, really going back. I was probably 10 or 12. And Around the Horn it's sort of morphated into the Spike Milligan Goon Show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I never got into the Goon Show until years later. It's like I never got into Monty Python until years later. Probably because I was drinking while I watched it.
A very good programme was the one about a shipping magnate. It was all about these guys who had these ships that would pick up goods from one country and bring them into another, and all the episodes and the characters on these ships. And a lot of them I think it was based up near Newcastle, which is where also you had that the programme with the two guys, which was called
Oh, the Likely Lads.
Likely Lads.
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
it,
Likely
yeah.
Lads.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
That was one of the hottest
Yeah,
ones to
yeah.
see, really.
Yeah.
In the
It's
first
very good.
series, yeah.
And Bob Buse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's it.
And what was the appeal? Was it because they were on the same wavelength as you at that time?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, it was exactly the same as that. Yeah, it's like having to go to you go to a dance on a Friday night, and you go in there and you see a couple of girls, and you go, well, they're nice, and you go up to them and ask them whether you could sort of fancy a drink, and you take them over to the bar and you chat to them, and you go and have a dance, and then they're going to have another drink, and you say, well, perhaps we could walk you home or something, you know. And then they say, yeah, we just got to get our handbags, and then the next moment you see them disappearing out the front door. So they had a very cheap evening on us.
Funny you should say that about meeting the girls at a dance. When I was about 9 or 10 or 11, Mum and Dad got my sister, Hilary, and me to go to dance lessons. doing waltzes in quick steps. Can you imagine 10-year-olds doing waltzes in quick steps? Because Dad said it would be a great way to meet girls when I was a bit older. I'll be able to ask them for a dance. Waltzes in quick steps. Now, I gave up after a year or two of that. But of course, it was never waltzes in quick steps. If we went out as a teenager, we went down the disco, didn't we? And
Yeah.
they weren't playing waltzes in quick steps. Nice idea, but it never worked.
Do you still remember how to do the waltzes? and
No,
quick-step?
not really. I
But
mean,
you can pretend you do.
but even now, if you go to, well, New Year's Eve disco down Widcombe Social Club,
Yeah.
they don't play waltzes in quick steps. I wouldn't know how to do them anyway, but
No.
you know, the world has moved on. You still go to a dance to meet girls, but it's different.
Well, I met this girl in the doctor's the other day, and she was a nurse taking blood, and we were chatting away, and she said she doesn't like dancing very much. I said, why is that? And she said, because she just can't dance. She's got no rhythm and things like this. And I explained to her that since I've been going to exercise class where you do all these warm-up exercises where you move forward 2 steps and across and come back, and that's all you have to do. And you can get into the rhythm of the songs, you see. So just do that and lift your arm up and lift the other arm up and shake your hands together.
It's like you've just described line dancing that I did
Yeah.
a few years ago.
That's quite good,
A
isn't
few
it?
steps forward and a few steps
It gets
back.
everybody together. That's the thing. I think people like that.
You a good dancer, John?
I'm a terrible dancer. I've got no rhythm, no coordination. I'm tone deaf. If that counts. No.
So you don't go down the dance hall on the pull then?
No.
No.
When I was young, very young, 16, 17, they used to be in the Glen. Do you remember the Glen?
Yeah,
in
the
Clifton?
Glen.
I went there twice with my friend Mike. Now we know he was gay. He was a good dancer. Wore one of Burton suits. Was it?
Yeah, but
Yeah, first suit I ever had in my life. I didn't like it at all. I mean, they played some good music because it was topical at the time.
But one of the best places, John, was the Clifton, the Redland Tennis Club.
Yeah, that was years,
Now that was a dead cert. You
That was
could
years
go along
later.
there,
that was years later.
and you could go along there, and there's some nice people got there.
I never remember dancing there, but I can remember the girls there.
Oh.
And lots of girls there, so that was very productive.
And I lived about 300 yards from it.
Nice. Now the Glen, was that in the bottom of the quarry?
Yeah.
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 Because that bottom of the
Private
quarry,
hospital now.
Yeah.
that was, in my day, that was Tiffany's
Yeah, it was.
dance
Tiffany's, yeah.
hall. And we went down there to do the disco
Yeah,
music
yeah.
when I was in the sixth form. But the Glen, I guess, was the quarry,
Yeah.
and Tiffany's was the disco at the bottom.
I went there twice, I think, with Mike. The second time, I was going towards the exit because I just wanted some fresh air and get away from the noise. And somebody let a firework off behind me. And the bouncer, who was a guy called Dave Prowse, who became
Green Cross man.
and Deaf Father,
Yeah.
Darth Vader.
yeah, got hold of me and flung me over this railing. And it was nothing to do with me. And he just flung me, and I protested my innocence, and I looked at him, no, forget it. And I never went to another disco. I think I probably went to another disco. The tennis club doesn't count as discos, really.
But they had a bit of a disco then.
Once in America, I went to a couple of discos, and I'm paranoid shy when I go to places like that. And I couldn't ask anybody to dance. I started telling my kids years later, I don't know if Mark, we discussed this before, when I started to work at British Aircraft Corporation in 1960, 61, there used to be a club called the Aces Club in the old college down the bottom of the hill, Film College. And it was for apprentices and junior staff.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a little disco, but it was very supervised and there was no alcohol. And I can remember seeing this very attractive girl dance. It was quite tall for me. And I asked her to dance. And that was the first and last time I've ever asked anybody to know that I didn't know to dance. And she became my wife and mother of my children.
Oh, God.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that's it. I mean, I may have had a few drinks in America and a couple of discos and asked, but I don't remember it. I was hopeless. I was really hopeless. I was a stick to the bar. You know, I was so shy.
Stick to what you know.
But I mean, I think even in the Redland Tennis Club, he used to talk to them first, and Richard, his friend Richard, they talked to anyone, and I used to just, look, here I am. And that's true. Hanger on.
What about Mark? Best holidays, worst holidays?
Oh, I don't go on holiday very much because when I was involved with the tour managing and tour operations, you were just quite happy to stay at home. But I enjoyed my holidays in Portugal in that country. They're very nice people. Got a nice. They like the English as well, and if you get away from the most populous places, you can actually have a really nice, interesting time. Spain's been very good. I think with Spain, it's becoming more and more attractive because all their food is beautiful as well. But I spent lots of holidays in France, and they've got nice beaches and nice food. And down in the Dordogne is actually adorable down there. Italy's great. Germany's, it's all very nice actually because it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we used to go camping when we were kids. And my dad had a Hillman 14 and he had a round tent and we'd go to Pembrokeshire and put the tent up in the pouring rain. And it was a round tent and we'd all sleep in there as though we were a tribe of Indians. And the highlight was to drive the car down to the beach, and there was a little shop where you could we had a choice of buying a bar of chocolate each, and all the kids would buy a bar of chocolate, and then you swap a piece of the chocolate bars and things. They're the nicest when you're younger, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
You know, so, and you don't pay for anything as well, which is good.
Yeah. My dad used to make an 8mm home movie film once a year, and it was of us going to the seaside for our holiday.
You've still got them?
Yeah, still got them.
Yeah.
Ice creams on the beach, riding on the donkeys at Weston-super-Mare.
That's right.
Nice.
It's, did you ever take your kids over there, John?
Where?
On holiday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never took them abroad. We used to go down to Mevagissey, Cornwall,
Yeah.
places like that.
And camp or not?
No, their mother had a caravan.
Caravan, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, caravan holidays are quite nice,
Yeah.
actually. I quite like them. They're
That's it.
quite...
Yeah, it's the only time I've ever been in a caravan. But, I mean, it wasn't... About 2 or 3 years ago, I went with my daughter to Monument Valley in the States, but where they used to make the westerns and things.
Yeah.
And then we did drive around there, saw where the asteroid had hit,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and went up to Grand Canyon, and all that was spectacularly nice. But the thing that stands out of memory is we just got up to the Grand Canyon. I've been to Grand Canyon 2 or 3 times, and just got to the rail, and this bloody great Grand Canyon condor came by, and he was literally inches from his wingtip from us, and he just looked at us like we weren't there, and that stayed with me forever.
Yeah.
Like when I was with Sylvie, we were in Maui, and a whale come up just right by the boat. I've got a picture of her, and she hasn't seen the whale come up, and there's the whale looking at Sylvie.
Oh, wow.
Still got this picture, you know. God, so I've seen hundreds of whales in the Merchant Navy, but I've never seen one that close.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at her, and she didn't see it.
A meal.
No, they don't. They only eat. They eat like
Krill.
Krill, that's it, krill. Very, very small
Yeah.
fish. Like that kid. Do you see that guy in the kayak? I forget where it was now. I think it's off of Africa
Yeah,
somewhere.
he got eaten by a whale.
Yes.
He disappeared entirely.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Wow.
And he wasn't even touched. Amazing.
Yeah.
Don't like you. That's probably like me the first time I had an oyster.
Oh.
The oyster's probably still alive somewhere.
I used to enjoy going abroad with Mark, because that's my son, when he was about 7 or 8, and I'd always give him the key of the hotel so he'd open the door, and he used to love doing that, putting the key in the lock and open the door, and then he'd go in and look at the television and the bathroom and the bed. And that was one of his most enjoyable things.
Yeah.
That was good to do that.
Yeah. Happy memories.
Yeah.
I'm by the Bird Bath for the Bath Half Marathon running today, and it makes me wonder what Mark and John did for sports in their earlier years and what they do for exercise now. Maybe that's a question for next time. See you then.